Okay, so let's talk about computing economic value. I'm going to give you a handful of ways to do this. Some of them are going to be super straightforward and make total sense to you, and some of them are what we like to call educated guesses. But all of these, all of these lead you to what I'm going to emphasize, which is every single goal. Every single micro and macro conversion on your website has to have an economic value attached to it, has to have a revenue source attached to it, meaning you have to assign a value to every single thing you do on your website, micro macro conversions that you want people to do, because it will allow you to look at reporting that you would not otherwise have, and it will give you real conversations around real data to have, and that will allow you to make real decisions with your decision makers that mean something. Okay, and so just keep that in mind, that even if it's $1, even if you put $1 value to a download of a brochure, and you do that for everything, right? Even if you put $1 for emails and email signups and PDF downloads, because you just don't know. After going through this video, you're still not sure how to assign a value to a particular thing because you can't do these things for whatever reason in your business. You at least need to put $1 next to it, because it will begin the conversation. And I'll explain a little bit more in a minute. So the first thing, like I said, determining revenue is easy, right? Because if you buy a shirt and it's $10, I generated $10, and that was revenue, and that's one of the macro conversions. Success is predicated, though, on your success as a business is predicated on being able to define the question marks that are on the screen right now to arrive at economic value, which is macro conversions plus micro conversions. Okay, together those two both mean economic value to business. And so there are 5 steps. Okay, so these are the 5, I guess, tips or ways that you can compete economic value. And you're going to start with number 1, and you're going to work down the list. Okay, so number 1 is the best way. Number 2 is a pretty good way. 3 is okay. 4 is okay. 5 is our least resort, but we still need it. Okay, we still need it. So we have 5 ways to do this. Let's get started. Number 1, tracking offsite conversions. Okay, and so we're gonna look at both tracking number 1, offsite conversions, and number 2, offline conversions. Offsite conversions mean we're still operating online, but they're not on your website. They leave your site. So Avinash belongs, on his blog, he sells his book, Web Analytics 2.0, which some of you have. He sells that on there. But when you click on this, to buy this, you're gonna go to Amazon right here. How do you track that? So they've left your site. How do you track how many people are leaving your site to go buy this book? Well, easy, right? Because Avinash's book, the e-commerce, the macro conversion, actually happens away from the website. That's okay. What he did was he became a direct affiliate. He became an affiliate of Amazon. And as such, he gets this little piece of code right here from Amazon. Amazon gives it to him as an affiliate. And because of that tag, he can then log into Amazon, look at his orders report, and he can get the data. Okay, and so this link is not just amazon.com/dp/this is his book. He actually puts this little tag after it, and that little tag then allows this report to be produced. And not only that, but then on his site, he's able to use this tag to be able to track conversion rates as well. So that can be one of his goals. So he can tell how many people convert, and he knows how much he earned. And because he knows how many people convert and how much he earned, he can calculate the value of this link on his website. So how do we apply this to Google Analytics? Well, I have a screenshot here. We've already went through how to do this. You go into Google, you go into Google Analytics, you create the goal, you name it whatever you want to name it. We're going to assign a goal value because I know that from this, right? I know how much revenue I'm generating on average. I get $2, or he gets $2.50 for every book or every click based on its revenue. So how many clicks versus how much revenue. He divides it by the number of clicks, and he comes up with, for every click, it's worth $2.50. Notice that the destination here is tied to that code that he uses, right? It's tied to that code that he uses, that he already has. So the sales here, the $2.50. Now he can use the data to make better decisions because of that piece of code. The other thing I can do is what he did. He also belongs to Marketing Motive. He's a co-founder of Marketing Motive, and they don't have an e-commerce. They don't have a direct affiliate program. And so what he can do is he uses another URL. So this ties into this URL. He adds this code here that allows the website to track how many people click on this. And now he has access to the back end of Marketing Motive as well, so he can track it from both sides. But this piece of code tells what the source is, what the medium was, and what the campaign talked about as well. You can build this code in Google Analytics fundamentals. We'll talk about this later in the term. But if you go here, you can actually build this URL. So then what you do is, again, now you have a link, an outbound link that you can capture and track so that you understand what traffic is coming from where and what the value is to your site. So the first thing that you can do, again, goal setup, the destination, goal, marketing motive. We decided that it's worth $8 because, again, I look at revenue that's generated from that link because I have that code and I can look at the back end and find out how much revenue that is. And I now know that that's worth $8 every time somebody clicks on that link. So remember, tracking codes are your friends, referral links are your friends. They allow you to capture the data and to be able to better understand what kind of revenue they're generating. The second thing that we want to do is track offline conversions. So the first one was track off-site conversions. People are leaving your site. How do we track it? The second is, how do we track offline conversions? Things that are happening not online, not on the web, just like Cadillac, they're going to the dealership and they're buying a car. So it's what happens in the real world, out there, off, not online. So this takes a little bit of planning ahead and thinking about the process of how people go through and what they do online that then result in them buying offline. But even Caterpillar, these huge industrial pieces of equipment, have many macro and micro conversions. So for example, you on Caterpillar can actually customize an industrial loader and request a dealer quote. How fun is that? Go build your own digger. And so you have this quote here, and then you can request it. And so just like we talked about before, what I can do is I can then take all of November's quotes. I can follow them because these, especially since they cost $177,000 plus, are going to take a little bit longer to convert. So I might track over 6 months how many of them converted. And then I divide it by how many requests came in online. Now I have a monetary figure for everybody that fills out this form. What's it worth? What's it worth to our business? And so now I have a dollar figure based on real numbers that happened, but they happened offline, tied to something that's happening online. Okay, and so listen, this is the thinking ahead part, because all this information is already getting passed over. It's already getting passed into your customer relationship management or CRM system. And so now I'm going to think ahead about this. I'm going to say, okay, I need at least the fact that it was a web quote. So what I don't want it to do is get mixed in with quotes from other sources. So I want a piece of data or information that gets passed every time they hit submit here that says, hey, this is a web quote. And I also want a transaction ID. And that actually is produced by Google Analytics or by your this web form that can be very easily produced. And so now I have a transaction ID, because then what I'm going to do is track anybody. I can go in 6 months from now and I can sort, or have them sort, by all the web quotes and all the transaction IDs, because the transaction ID is going to be consistent, the transaction IDs that converted. So now I have the total value of conversions from the web quotes divided by the number of web quotes, total, not just that converted, but total web quotes, and I get the average economic value of that particular link. Okay, and so now I know what the value of each person filling out this form and what it is. How do I do that in Google? I go to custom setup, and again, goal details, micro conversions, products, quote request. Okay, and so the economic value I find out is $38,962 on average. How did I get that? Because I looked at the CRM system, which is offline. I watched it complete, right? So the information, the fact that it was a web quote, the details that they wanted, and the transaction ID went through the customer relationship management software. I then watched it complete in our ERP system. And what I do is I get the net sum of all that value and I divide it by the total number of web quotes. And now I have a value, 38,962, that now is associated with every time somebody clicks to request a quote. Another example of things that you can track, customizing the phone number to track it, that it came from the web, from an ad or an email, etc. So you can customize these phone numbers. And so then I'm able to track, okay, how many people called this number total, right? How many people total called this number and how many people, or not how many people, but what was the revenue generated from those particular phone calls because they all came into this particular extension or they came in using this particular number. So now I know, hey, here's an ad, okay, this particular phone number is tied directly to this ad. How many people called this number, how much revenue was generated from people calling this number, divide revenue by the number of total phone calls, and I now know what the value of this ad is. Do the same thing with emails, a vanity phone number for this particular email, and then do the same process again. Another thing is credit card ID numbers, so transaction ID numbers. I can then use that ID to track if people paid, so they sign up for a credit card at Victoria's Secrets, and now I can track that credit card because they signed up for that credit card. I now can track that credit card ID using multiple services both on and offline. Catalog, I can go back and see because every catalog has a unique piece of identifying code, like a number, a barcode, and I know then where did that catalog come from? Products and services, did they purchase products and services? So I can look at the revenue in the offline world divided by the number of catalog downloads. Coupons, like if I go to Target, all my Target coupons have a unique tracking barcode that then tells Target, hey, excuse me, this person, because you sign in to get the coupons, this person is buying this amount of revenue. So then they know what's the value of this coupon to the business. The third thing, so we have using off-site information, using offline information. We can also use something called faith-based numbers. And so what's the value of the video watched? What's the value of the download of the catalog and the catalog website? What is the banner ad view? Not the click, but the view, because if they click, I can track them. But what about people viewing the ad? Well, we can use faith-based numbers. Here's the deal. If you've worked in advertising, probably haven't worked in advertising, but if you've taken an advertising class, you've probably talked about calculating return on investment. And we have formulas in your finance office and your chief marketing officer. They have formulas to calculate the value of television ads, brochures, billboards, sponsorships, etc. So go to your finance office and ask them if they have models to help executives understand how much to spend on TV or brochures or billboards or sponsorships, what the value is. And then you're going to say, can you please share with me the model with the computations that you use for each of these? Or do you have a value for each of these? And what they will then do is say, yes, the catalogs are worth $1.45. TV impressions are worth $5. Sponsorship impressions are worth 52 cents. Okay, and so they might give them to you. They might give you a model, or maybe together you can figure them out. Then what you do, because we want to use apples to apples, right? We're going to use the computations that they've already come up with, that your executives are already seeing, and we want to use them too. But here's something that you might want to consider doing. Psychologically, people, what you don't want to do is go into a room where people say, that number's too high. It's not worth as much as it is in the, quote, real world. And so what we do is we divide it by 50%. We reduce it by 50%. And here's what's really funny is when the executive comes to you and says, why are you calculating catalogs at $1.45? You say, well, actually, print catalogs, we actually calculate at almost $3, but I actually half it. And what's funny is a lot of the executives say, well, why the hell did you do that? It should be the same value. And you say, yes, it should. And now you have a more set value that's consistent across your organization. And so that's what we do with faith-based numbers. Once again, I can go in then goals in Google Analytics. I'm going to call this downloads. It's a destination goal. There's the download page, and I'm going to say that every download's worth $1.45 based on these faith-based numbers that my CFO gave me, my Chief Financial Officer gave me. The fourth way that you can do this is using relative goal values, okay? What you want to do, the first step is to prioritize. So I'm going to work with my executives to prioritize micro conversions. So again, using the Victoria's Secrets example that we used earlier, okay, you have wish lists and catalogs and send to a friend and angel cards and email leads. What's most important to you? And they prioritize wish lists, catalogs, send to a friend, angel cards, and emails. That's how they're going to prioritize them in that order. And so, because again, maybe the finance department doesn't have the data. So now what do you do, right? So this is the first step. So the first step is getting them to prioritize the micro conversions. Then we're going to assign values. Wish list. So again, maybe I can get the value using one of the earlier methodologies, or just pure economic conversion. Maybe I can get it for wish list. So people who create them, I wait 30 days, so they create them beginning September 1st through September 30th, and on October 1st, I say, okay, how many converted and how much revenue was generated? And so what I find is that for every wish list created in the past 30 days, $57.25 of value was generated. Okay, so now I know that that is an actual number, at least for September, $57.25. Then I say, okay, catalogs. I'm going to use the offline conversion method for catalogs, and I find out that each catalog download is worth $200. Okay, so then we go maybe back to the executives, and I say, okay, so if the wish lists are worth $57.25 and a catalog is worth $200, what would you say an angel card is worth? Okay, and so I'm asking them this question. I might do it myself if I have a good understanding of this, but you can also have these conversations with your businesses. And so we actually come up with this list of, this is the priority order, and here are the calculated information. And what's always interesting is we try to nail down folks on these numbers, and they kind of hem-haw about it, but when you start actually using them, it's really funny because they'll come back to you and say, well, wait a minute, send to a friend's worth a lot more than $24. And again, it begins those conversations that might have been a little harder to have in the past. But it gives you, here's the priority order that your executives set, but it gives you, okay, catalog requests are worth a lot more than angel cards, which are worth a lot more than send to a friend, etc. And so then what we can do with this is we might actually guess at worst case. So this is kind of like 4.5, right? So we might need to guess at a value. I mean, these aren't hard science. Like, what's a video watch? I don't know, $5? Okay, $5, put it in. Because you have a value, You want to get as close as you can. Obviously, we want to use economic calculators like we did here, indicators with the wish list, but sometimes we don't have those, and you just have to guess. Because getting those numbers in then allows me to have this per session goal value. We start putting dollar signs next to things that are going on, okay, as opposed to big fat zeros across the board. So that ties into number 5. That's why that was 4.5. 5 is just use something. If all other of the strategies fail, your new client's not cooperating, etc., go into Google Analytics, create all the micro macro conversions that we talked about, and then assign a dollar value of 1 across the board. Just assign a dollar value of $1 across the board, because then suddenly pieces of your website have real value. You can then have access to the custom reports. And what's really awesome is then you show the CEOs, you show your executives these reports, and they're like, wait, why is everything $1? Well, this is too low. These should be higher. And then they're interested in talking because they speak money. And so they say, hey, that's too low. And you say, well, that's okay. I have 4 strategies of how we can come up with values that might be a little bit more accurate. Will you work with me? And you go through the offline, and you go through the offsite, and you go through the economic, impact, the calculations, etc. And so now you can have a real conversation using real strategies. So micro plus macro conversions equals economic value, micro plus macro conversions times economic value equals massive success. And this is where we make that leap into being a real analyst, because now we are speaking the conversation, we're in the conversation with all of our colleagues, talking about how this website is actually making an impact on the bottom line.